Anastasia, what do you think about the topic? Because I know you wanted to have the discussion, and I'm great that we have this discussion. Actually, it's absolutely amazing.
The discussion in general about what drives different tastes and consumption. I mean,
Just
for
in terms of
me,
like this bottom down versus top down influence, and kind of what you think about it. Bottom up, sorry, versus
yeah,
top.
yeah, how the consumer you mean influences what the decisions,
Yeah,
how things are. Yeah. So we said before that street influences fashion, but unfortunately, I don't see much on the street right now. I mean, if you ask me, like when I'm observing people, it's a very small percentage of people that really educated enough. Consumers are not educated, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not talking about people who work in fashion. This is normal, but big percentage of the
yeah.
consumers are not educated enough, and there is like in terms of quality, for example, probably in the past it was easier because there was not so much badly made things. There were not fast fashion brands. I remember when I was very young, when I was adolescent, and even for my parents, they used to find 100% cotton. It was the regular thing, for example, for sports clothes. Now you to find like a full cotton and even cotton inside that keeps you warm like a fleece kind. It's like from Nike or from wherever, it's almost like a mission to find like a 100 cotton thing. So maybe because in the past also they had quality, it was like that, but now it's not like that, and but seems people have not shifted, so they don't know how to distinguish things, they don't know how to. So I don't see them much being inspiring into creating a movement. Also, subcultures are dying little by little. That's another thing. People are not expressing that much through clothes anymore, even
That's so
so.
big. No, you
It
gotta talk.
becomes it becomes flatter and flatter and more homogeneous. And the danger I mentioned before about people like Lauren and other very wealthy people is like this capitalistic logic. And I'm not against money, it's not about that. It's just it's heading there where like individuality will become less and less. And it's a whole social thing on so many levels. In the end, it's gonna be like, I don't know, like an
I
uninspiring
100% agree.
environment. I see this all the time. And like, who are we going to count on? On the people that work in fashion? It is a very small percentage. So then who will end up guiding? But the wealthy people, because they will buy, luxury, they will buy LV, and the rest probably will be gone. I don't know. Like so many other brands will be gone. We see already many brands that cannot sustain themselves. We don't have that big of a diversity in brands neither, to choose from. When we talk about fashion brands, I mean, not smaller ones. But yeah, so for me, this bottom up, I really don't know. I think it has to come from the top. But from the top, I mean, not necessarily people that are financially wealthy, but creatives. They need to be, in my opinion, more creatives. They are the ones, as we said, the example of not taking the risk at Dior, even on the way of displaying the clothes. To me, this is very sad. Because if they don't do it, who's going to do it? Like, who is going to show, to create that kind of movement? Like, the consumer gets inspired, and maybe then they get educated, and then maybe, they feed back. So if there is no nourishment like that back and forth, and we only care about, okay, to how many can we sell a bag? To how many people can we sell a skirt? Okay, we sold enough, and that's enough. That's why I said when money is the only criterion in fashion and in creative industries in general, we are heading for a very boring, homogeneous disaster, I would say. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
my take on this. It's a little bit
Mm.
pessimistic, but I think it's pretty realistic at this point.
No, I don't think it's pessimistic at all. And I'll tell you why. There's one major thing that is like, so it's something that I can't prove, but it's also something that I believe in wholeheartedly. And that nobody actually dresses like their personality anymore. There are people where it's like the punks used to be punk and you could tell that they were punks. The skaters used to be skaters and you could tell that. And then when it became, oh, the people who were street used to dress in a particular way, and the people who had street style had their flair. And then the rich people who always used to have this rich style, but now people can buy an old money look, buy three simple garments from Zara. And if you buy 10 of them, then you're able to, rotate a few, and now you've got a whole old money aesthetic.
And the reverse is happening too. There used to be a time
Mm.
when you could identify a private school kid.
Exactly.
But nowadays, private school
Yeah,
kids wear Nike Tech fleece and like
Exactly.
shoes.
And
uh,
switched it. They switched our whole stuff up. And
yeah.
it's like,
The
yeah, go on,
the
Anastasia. It's your
example the example you're giving about punks being punks, it was because at the time people cared about things other than money also. Now everybody's obsessed about money, and people when they have money they just want to show that they have money. So there is no joy in experimenting for the sake of experimenting. That's why I say when you only are driven in thinking, okay, what is this going to give? Like we started becoming a society that we want to count everything financially, and that's very problematic. Socially speaking, it's very problematic because when the punks they didn't care if they look, actually it was the contrary of being wealthy. But now this we don't see anymore. People they don't rebel against that. They just want all eventually if they could to have money. They're going in the same direction. You don't see that much of rebellion aesthetically. So when there is this obsession money for the sake of money, it's going to kill all creativity for sure. And it's
Yeah.
doing it already, right? I
yeah,
mean, I don't know
yeah.
if you agree on this, but, and then this is what I told you in the beginning that I didn't expand much on this point. I have this feeling that people are like generally overstimulated because we live very fast lives and they're tired of dressing in the end. Like it's almost like it's the last thing they want to do, just put something on them. And I love observing people in the street and in the metro, and that's what I see. It's almost like they're forcing themselves to just put something and go out. It's really the opposite of it. Yeah, because you see bad fittings, no makeup, not hair down. And not all of these people are poor people necessarily. But even if you're poor, you can really be very decent also. So, and then, just black and sports shoes and even, as I told you, bad fitting. So it means you barely look yourself in the mirror when you go out. Why is that? What is the reason for that? I wonder what is the reason for that? Why you pay so little attention to that? Do you think it's something that is not I don't know. Why is that? Why
There
do you
may
think
be
is that?
to me there may be an ongoing like schism between subculture and material culture, where if you had a subculture before, you
Yeah,
had to meet physically, and so you go to create the tools to define your subculture from a material perspective. And that's just not
yeah,
necessary anymore. Everything's mediated digitally now, and so instead the sort of change comes to activity. Like in this subculture, they perform this activity, which some of which can be done digitally, or they do it by language, where you have so many neologisms coming up every week now because of how much subculture can kind of escape its boundaries and access the wider algorithms of the general population. So there's that level, and as soon as that happens, obviously the subculture dies immediately, and you got to move on and figure out something else to do. But what I mean is that like the fact that like it doesn't come from subculture also maybe comes from the fact that materiality is more difficult in, let's say, overdeveloped countries where the material manufactural capability and the ability of people to be to have access to factories and discarded productions and stuff like that that could cheaply manufacture new material subcultures, all that's disappearing. It's going to Portugal, China, Turkey. These places that actually manufacture our things are different places and are sort of more removed from like the people who are creating the most cultural noise and cultural product, right? And so that's also, I think, an element of that is that over the course of the 20th century, the financiers moving everything overseas is removing the people who consume the product from the people who manufacture the product. And that's also a big part of it, I think.
Yeah, like
yeah,
one thing that is like massive, like that's super duper massive, is like when it comes to not just people even meeting, as well as it's like the value or the psychology that the person had when they were dressing back in the days that have become
yeah,
real today, is they had a different mindset. They dressed because there was a necessity to look like that. Like the ripped tights wasn't just because, oh, I wanted to create some ripped tights and fishnets, some ripped fishnets and all of these other things and have ladders in them. Because I remember when we were going to school, if you had ladders in your tights, you were considered so and so. But they were thrifting tights for a lot of these girls, and they had to wear these because that's all they had, because they were kicked out. And then some people even become flagrants, like, and there were so many reasons as to, and they were buying stuff in charity shops because they were countercultural. And with how I see it today is like, okay, there's this book that I'm reading. It's called Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord, right? And they talk about these happenings, and this is where I get to your point, Al, about just like being in a material place. Is like culture happens when people connect. And when I looked up the new romantics, what I found out is in the midst of all of the things, in the sex, the drugs, all of these other things that they were talking about, the culture manifested, then the music came from there, and then they were on TV. It wasn't, oh, I want everybody to see this as soon as it happens because I need to get however many views on my social media. And this is the thing, right? People go to social media with their culture first. And if social media doesn't accept it, then they're gonna do something that's gonna get them the views. And then this is part, at least how I see it, of how we're homogenizing ourselves. Is because when you're truly doing something niche, people aren't going to get it, and it's not going to get you the immediate gratification that someone with a mind that, you know, doesn't have their prefrontal cortex, to be completely honest, and it's very impressionable at 16, 17, 12, whatever it is, that they want that gratification from their peers, because school is the thing, like school is their lives, and that's where their culture happens. I said a couple of points there, but yeah.
There's a lot of good comments coming through about this. Actually, the only likes your clothes can defo show is when you're wearing athletic wear. Al said also something good. Also, with everything being broadcast on social media, nightlife just isn't the same anymore. You can't go to the club and have a good time without someone shoving a camera and a torchlight in your face. Yeah, that is really annoying. People whose content is predicated on like invading your personal space. And
Literally,
like privacy is like insane.
There
That's
used
some
to be
people's like content strategy.
there used to be one person with a camera that would ask if they could take a picture of you,
Right.
and that would be it. Now everybody has a camera, and if you're dancing, people want that as
someone
content.
can just start filming you into content.
Brother.
Look at the way this guy's dancing.
Yeah.
It's just on TikTok.
There's the tinfoil hat version of this, right? Where like due to, you know, all of the sort of money right now in startups like Palantir and like investment in big technology and data mining, how people live their lives, that like it's almost a sort of like pointed and on purpose act that people who have these sort of like big data services are trying to destroy subculture by very quickly exposing them to the, you know, the sort of harsh limelight of population and mass culture.
Not for real. Like, and that's, man, like I remember when the only circle you had to worry about was when people are getting out the way for you to bust your dance move. But now you have the circles of all of these flashlights, knowing that these are cameras. Now my sweaty body is on the internet because I'm dancing my heart out. you know when you're enjoying yourself with your little cousins and stuff, and then I don't know whether many people know this, but it's like, oh, dance for your aunties and uncles. It's like, do that dance for you.
Yeah,
And suddenly you got this little kid for all of these huge grown-ups doing like this dance move that kids do nowadays, and then they start laughing. That's what it feels like when someone shoves a camera in your face. It's like, this doesn't feel like you guys are laughing with me or you're enjoying the moment with me. And I guess that's like one of the major problems, is like we're not enjoying the moment with ourselves. Because I love the fact that we can document our lives and our realities, but that's only until after the reality is being made, right? Like you need the reality to actually form to have something to record. And so many people start so early. It's like we're only ever recording what people want to see from us. Like because we have nothing of taste or of value outside of that, because we need the gratification. And it's unfortunate, but at the same time, that is the nature of the beast. Like I was saying, it's like, listen, you're going to record a subculture, but then once you record it, it's going to blow up, and then people are going to be like, why are you guys doing this? Like, you know, when you make an inside joke with your friend, like, I don't know whether this happened to very many people, but when you make an inside joke with your friend on social media, and then suddenly that tweet or that message blows up, and then now the way you talk to your friend is the subject of criticism to other people. And it's like, wait, hold on a freaking minute. This is the way I talk to my friend. How I talk to my friend should not be the way that you think you can
use in context to like,
exactly. And it's like, bro, I need to anyway. Yeah, that's such a niche thing that happens on social media, but whatever.
This is a good question that we can answer. Do you guys think the creators of the past would have become as successful in our current social climate?
Yeah.
It depends which ones.
Do you think
Also,
someone like, let's say, Alexander McQueen could be as successful if he started his career now?
I don't
Yes.
see McQueen
Absolutely.
making videos about how he's making his patterns.
That's the
No,
thing.
it doesn't have to be that. Yeah.
Okay, what content would he make? Is my question. How would he get his first 20k followers on Instagram?
I think it's really
He'll
easy
probably
because
make
like
some-
radio shows, right? It's like this
Yeah.
huge sense of dramaticism, and it's I think very easy
Yeah.
for
Before the
the fashion
show,
world.
before all of the shows, like, you know what I'm saying? Like Highland.
He went to school and he met people and they believed in him and they gave him a show. That's what
Do
happens.
you know why I asked? I want to play devil's advocate. I think McQueen is super intellectual. His work is super intellectual, and I question if he would be given that first chance in the first place, because I think back then when he was becoming big, fashion was as intellectual as he was. Like, the way that journalists used to talk about fashion was more intellectual. The way that people used to cover fashion was more intellectual. The way that, I guess, magazines navigated fashion was more intellectual. That was like before, like, celebrity culture has always been a thing, but that was before like just the sheer like pandemonium of things like the Met Gala just reaching the stars. Fashion is bigger now than it's ever been. When I was younger, like, the stuff I used to wear, people were like, what the fuck are you wearing? Whereas now people will be like, oh, I've seen it on TikTok. It's different. So would the industry allow someone like McQueen to be able to showcase his skills for us to then be like, oh my God, he's amazing? Would he have the chance in the first place?
I don't believe so.
think he would.
Oh,
I
Luke,
think
this
he
is a
would.
good point. No, because he wasn't politically correct. Yeah, that's very
like
true.
I don't like he was never like people act
That's
like they
very
would
true.
love McQueen. They didn't even like McQueen back in the days.
Yeah, they didn't.
Nobody liked him. It's such a misnomer the way that we speak about him today. Is like I don't remember any of this. Like, and he was such a loudmouth. I at least think he would have been known for his mouth before he was known about his clothes.
Right. Because everything he says would go viral.
Literally. Like
Fashion designer says F you to like they would
Yeah,
cook him
remember
on the
back in
tabloid.
Because
the
people
day-
don't do that anymore.
Remember back in the day when
Yeah.
they were doing that with Kiko. Now can Kiko
I have that.
past his
Oh my God.
past his level now?
But that's because Kiko doesn't do that anymore though. I literally remember a time when Kiko's Instagram page was his personal venting platform.
Bro.
Like, Virgil Abloh would reduce a collection on his story. He'll be like, fuck Virgil Abloh, this is what I fucking don't like about fat. Literally on his main brand Instagram page. There was
He'll be
literally a
venting
time
on
when that
IG.
happened. And he doesn't do that anymore. Because the brand is too big. He has investors.
I
Like,
don't
he just
know.
can't afford to be doing
To
stuff
me,
like that.
to me, it's about the strength of your brand, right? If your strength of your brand is that you're messy and you constantly have drama, you can just be Moa Lola and have a following like Moa Lola has a following. You know?
So
it's just very plausible.
a super niche following that doesn't go outside of the subculture that they're in, because that's exactly what Moda is. It's like they probably sell maybe 5,000 pieces a year, and that's it.
She's retailed here in Tokyo still. She's an international presence. She has a strong voice with the people who are her clients, and
I think it's very possible. Yeah.
But that's
it
not
takes
how
one
big-
customer to bridge the gap, right? Maybe the next day we'll have her version of a Lady Gaga that takes her brand to like a different consumer base and sort of creates a legacy for a new kind of customer, like she did for
McQueen was
McQueen.
that though. I'll be real. McQueen was way bigger than that.
Yes, but she also helped bridge to a different consumer and helped
Isabella.
define the legacy of him in the mass market and for the general mass consumer.
The question is, so would Susie Menkes be like, okay, would a fashion writer like Susie Menkes be able to grow to the prominence that she did today?
Absolutely. She would use the tools of Instagram to grow her personal brand way of breaking down how she communicates the collections. I truly believe so.
I think editors wouldn't have any issue. Like someone like Tim Blanks,
Yeah.
the way he talks, like, yeah, he would have, it wouldn't
That's
matter.
intriguing. That's intriguing.
It's a bit different because I think it's the same tools, it's just a different platform. So it's like, if you're a journalist, it means you're good with words, you're good with structuring sentences, it means you're good with creating narratives, you're good at analyzing things. You can just do that in video form. I think it's a bit different for a designer because let's say McQueen, if he was a designer now, he would have to do more things than he did. Back then, designers used to just focus on being designers. And that was it.
Yeah.
Now you kind of have to be good with social media. You have to build a personal profile. You have to be a good designer. There's like too many moving parts.
Well, he
No,
also
but I mean,
collaborated a lot, right? and they'll
Sorry?
be like, he can't even make his own things. He's constantly collaborating,
Yeah.
like Virgil Abloh, like, and what's it, Kim Jones.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
these internships are a lot harder to get. But Anastasia, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that a perfect example, in my opinion, of the case of Alexander McQueen, if he would be successful or not, is John Galliano, who is older than McQueen, but when he took over Margiela, Margiela became known, and this is very recent. So it is very possible for a designer who is intellectual. I don't think that designers today are not intellectual. We shouldn't reduce it to that. Like, we shouldn't become so romantic about the past. Like, if today nobody's doing anything, it's. I think there are equally intellectual people today, editors as well, of course. The mediums have changed. Maybe you cannot be that outrageous, but that has to do with the society in general. It was a different era. People were expressing differently. Everything was different. So, of course, we cannot compare, but it doesn't mean that designers are. And Galliano is the living example.
I partially
Isn't-
agree with that though, because Galliano's biggest show was the last show technically,
The Margiela one. That
and
the
he
most
was
viral.
at Margiela.
Really?
Yes.
I mean-
I loved Galliano's,
Yeah.
even though I couldn't publicly say that 10 years ago. But like, okay, maybe love is a strong word, but I was like, I really, really adored it, and I thought he was a great designer, even though, like, yeah, the culture was different 10 years ago. But yeah, his biggest show was 10 years in.
I think he actually fucked the money up because under his purview, he sort of, I think, overly leaned into like some of the very popular signifiers of the house codes at Margiela. Like he put like the 4-stitch on everything from leather wallets and all these small leather goods, and he put the the number logo on a T-shirt for the first time. This motherfucker was probably not the one doing it, but he was nominally in charge of the merchandising that was happening that like really pushed the Margiela brand and the tabbies and everything, that blew it up commercially to scale that Glenn Martins made sense as a creative director. Glenn Martins doesn't get there until like what happened under his purview, happened. So to me, like, he's not a hero in the sense of what he did to the House of Margiela. But I enjoyed his collections, obviously.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I do slightly agree with Anastasia that he's an older head, but like if he started out as a student, I wonder, because like that means he would be just as brash, just as.
But you can also shut the fuck up and print money, like Tom Brown.
But when you're that great, you want people to know you're great. And I know so many designers today that I can name that are like new, they're great, and every behind the scenes conversation that they tell me is of them telling people that they're great, just give me your money and shut up and watch this.
And also, do you know what's funny about designers? And I have so many friends that are designers, so I can say this. Designers are the most harsh critics on other people's work. It's so funny.
Bro.
Like, people think I'm harsh. I'm actually objective. Like, my designers do not
savages.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Yeah, and I mean, even the ones that come out publicly,
yeah.
like, I mean, look at what Water Van Buren said about Virgil Abloh, or look at what, like, Kiko Costadno said about loads of designers when he was, like, using his Instagram to actually say what he felt until he stopped. Probably the investors were like, yeah, you have to stop that. Designers actually are the most critical about other designers' work, to be honest.
It's interesting though. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the conversation.
Here's a fun bit of conversation. Do you believe that fashion is a sport in the sense that there is a championship of all like the retail money that there is in the world in terms of like fashion customers, and it's about your ability to either influence or carve out a slice of like the totality of the market? Do you think it's a sport, and that's like why designers are so competitive and willing to like sort of poke at each other creatively?
Well, there's two things. You said two things there. I do think it's kind of like a sport where you have to carve out your market share, which is like there is different leagues. Like LVMH is a league and Karen is a league, right? And then they have their big players, Louis Vuitton, Dior, all of their companies are under the umbrella. Those are the actual teams, right? And then there's the overall market share. So LVMH can be considered, let's say, the NBA in this instance, and Karen will be the NFL. And then maybe like tomorrow or whatever insert group here would be the NHL, like the National Hockey League, for instance. But on the other instance, it's like designers and artists are just competitive in general. A lot of them pretend to not be and talk about, it's just about creativity, it's collaboration. The people that aren't on their side, that they don't think are their friends, they low-key kind of despise sometimes. And I'm just saying that as someone
Yeah,
who isn't
everyone
arty.
in fashion is compared. Like,
Yeah.
I have friends that are content creators that like they see another content creator do well, and they've told me like, I can't lie, if I'm being honest with you, I'm jealous of XYZ person. Or I've seen people that do production. Like, I went to the Celine factory, and the guy that is in charge of production at Celine was like, yeah, I'm so happy that our quality is better than Dior, and I would never give them our strategy because then it makes me look less competent in the eyes of Bernardo.
Something
Everyone's
went wrong.
competing for something, honestly,
Yeah.
in
And
fashion.
that's the thing.
But
It's
it's in
like
all industries like that.
Yeah.
in all industries,
This
you
is
said.
just human
Yeah,
nature. Yeah.
That's the industries,
I mean,
but
it's
this like
everywhere,
I
you know.
think designers in a way where it's like they're not like the people who they collaborate with, or you would love to see them collaborate with, are two completely different people. Like their friends are their friends for a reason because they think like them. And let's say a designer comes out and says something disparaging about another person that was probably geared by a conversation with a friend that they've collaborated with before, and it's really got like and like I could talk about this all day. This is low-key kind of insider baseball. But yeah, designers are definitely super duper competitive.
Yeah, but is that due to like there's sort of, some different psychology, or is it due to the sort of idea that there is a zero-sum market cap? There is just this market for fashion. It's not going to really meaningfully grow, and it's about how much of that you can get versus other
Yeah,
people.
it's
I know what's
both.
focus,
I think it's also okay. Let me bring like an analogy that's like so far left, but it still like applies. So like in reality, like in the real world, like if you think of like crime and stuff like that, like people get murdered for like, let's say $1 million, or like someone that tries to rob a bank for 500K is willing to kill people for 500K. So why do people not expect that when the Row brings out something that is being called the new Birkin, that Hermes is like just not going to do anything about it when there's like tens to hundreds of millions at
exactly.
stake? So of course there's like a competition, and obviously there's like animosity, and there's things that are being done to prevent this person from existing, because yeah, there is this kind of understanding that I have a certain amount of market share and I'll stop at nothing to allow someone else to start collecting my market share, which is basically what
Bro,
the Row is doing for like a brand like Mez, for example. So
that's
obviously in their office, things are happening to make sure that the Row doesn't continue to succeed.
I keep thinking about this. I think I said this on a live before when we were talking about Matthew Blaze and JW Anderson, and like how their competition is probably the biggest competition happening in fashion. And like they like when I'm sure, yeah, like this is just me psycho analyzing. Like none of this is real. I don't know these guys from nowhere. But Matthew Blaze 100% did not like that JW Anderson was getting favored by the market. And now that he's at Chanel, he's like, yeah, I freaking got them. He knew that bigger wasn't enough, and he went to a bigger place with a bigger player, and he's getting favored more than JW Anderson, and he loves it. And it's not because it's like part of it is because the company needs to be bigger, but Chanel has been bigger than Dior, right? But the other part
Yeah.
is he's competing with the other greatest designer that we have in our generation. Like we all talk about, like don't get me twisted. I do believe those two are the best designers that we have. But who would they compete with? How do they sharpen their iron? And it's like, yeah, I think they fought with each other, but like on a arm's length basis, because they're trying to make the best stuff and they're trying to get people to buy their things.
Okay, so following up on that idea, to tie it back into the article that's still on screen, there's feeling if that it is zero sum, we're not trying to grow the market, right? These are demographics that have stated their preferences, whether or not they're behavioral truths or just, personal values is secondary. They've stated their preferences. And we have literal things to target now to try to expand the market cap across these demographics, right? And so it's a question of like, do you believe that this competition will enlarge that market, or is it just going to cause it to shrink further as the sort of K-shape kind of widens the gap in accessibility? And also, like, the idea that it's impossible to grow the market is patently false, which is why, like, Louis Vuitton brought in Virgil Abloh because he could access a much larger market cap because he brought in people who were streetwear enthusiasts into the mode space, right? And so it's obviously not impossible to expand it. So it's like, can competition And can this sort of like way of framing how we think about designers and who they have to be in the 21st century, like actively grow the space? Which is that something we're even interested in, right? Because if you grow the space, now outsider money comes in. You have, more shareholders you have to report to like more quickly drive sales, and so they can extract the financial value from the house, regardless of how long the provenance is.
Yeah.
Do we even want that to happen? Do we want the market share to grow? And I think these are the interesting questions that we can ask that more relate to this BOF article.
Yeah, I mean, luxury brands are in real time trying to grow the market, but at the same time not lose market share. And it's like you have to be careful of both. So like Gucci, okay, let me say Kering, for example, use them as a case study. They were trying to grow their market share. They launched Kering Beauty, and they lost sight of Gucci, which controls majority of their revenue. So because they were looking at all these different things, they neglected Gucci, and they lost so much revenue. Now they're in issues to the point that they sold Kering Beauty, like to L'Oreal. So quite literally, yes, you can do things to grow market share and grow the market as a whole, but you also can't neglect the market share you already have, and you kind of have to play a game. Every brand is doing stuff to grow the market share. I mean, Chanel is investing in the boat race. You have Chanel investing in watches more. You have Louis Vuitton investing in sports more, and they're, sponsoring stuff like the NBA. They're making the trunks for the NBA finals. They're sponsoring the Olympics. They're trying to get involved in the World Cup. They're trying to make the trunk for the next World Cup in the US. So yes, you can grow the market share, but there's also like an understanding, which is why brands have to protect the market share they have through whatever nefarious means they do behind the scenes, because they also understand that's important. They have to kind of take care of both.
Yeah, a part of me understands that, they've got to grow the market share, and they definitely have changed their strategy from before, where it's like, okay, let's open a new market in the East. Let's go to China. And then it's like, oh, then, okay, we have this untapped market. Let's go to India.
India is the new one.
And it's like,
Yeah.
all right, we understand that there's growth markets, but them hyper focusing on China did what? It shrunk their American and European market, because they lost sight of what they already had. Exactly like I said, right? You can't lose sight of what you already have and growing in that place, because you need to be able to grow wider as well as add new customers. And if you're investing in adding new customers here, you're probably not necessarily taking care of the ones that you already have. So we've got to nurture the relationships, and you've got to acquire new relationships, right? And this is one thing that I really care about, and in terms of like just being an artist and a painter and figuring out what is the value in these particular areas. So when it comes to customer acquisition and like the cost of customer acquisition, right, as well as the customer retention, these companies need to care about all of them along the wider basis. So having things like, let's say, the LVMH sponsor a lot of things. So there's the ceramics that they sponsor, and then you've got what's it called, Kering, who does a lot of leather work sponsorship in Italy, and then and craftsmanship, so on and so forth. And it's like there's a lot of craftsmanship awards that are under these companies, and it's growing their not just artisanal basis, but exactly like I said, it's like, okay, Louis Vuitton wants to be known more along the lines of victory, and they want to be known more about like their ability to have their proximity to great human beings. And a great human being has a Louis Vuitton trunk, or they have their trophy case and it's Louis Vuitton, so on and so forth. But then also catering to the more niche demographic of, let's say, the arts and the ceramicists and the architects is very important to them as well. And then now you're growing yourself, not just in, okay, the general people see Louis Vuitton at the Olympics, but then also the people who are super niche demographics see them, oh, they're at the boat show, and then they're at the art exhibit, and they've got a Louis Vuitton person that is one of my favorite artists, so on and so forth, right? So it's like being able to nurture those relationships, but also acquire new ones with proximity to different types of human greatness. And when you're doing that, then you can get to pick up these different actors, not just, let's say, invite the biggest K-pop star, but now you have proximity to greatness within the Indian Bollywood scene. But yeah, it's like it's super interesting. But yeah, I love this convo.
Agreed. But I think we can pause it there because I don't want Anastasia to be here for 20 hours. So the
No, I would
last
just add a
thing,
comment on this, on
okay,
the retaining
you
of
can address
yeah.
that quickly.
Yeah, and retaining the consumer. Sometimes you have to take that risk, and you can have new consumers that might be a bigger percentage. This example of so many brands when they changed in the past creative directors, you might lose a part of the percentage of the consumers, but you might gain new ones. Also, there is always a risk. But if you want to try all the time to retain the whole amount of older ones and then create, it's like it creates an effect with maybe even the way the brand presents itself, its identity, and its the retail experience. It becomes, as I said in the beginning, very confusing because somehow you want everything. You want to keep the ones you have and you want new ones. I'm not saying you should not keep, but sometimes I think they are a little bit lost themselves in that. And you can see it in the, like I said, in the Dior stores. You can see that they want to keep the consumers, but like they want new ones because why they hired then a new creative director, right? Like if you change your creative director, it's because you want new consumers, but then you might risk losing some of the ones you have. You have to take rid of that risk, I would say. That's what I wanted to add, yeah.
This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind the scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.